Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GDI's consulting webinar on GSA Alliant 2 Small Business GWAC 3-bid webinar. My name is Larry Weiss, and I am the Senior Business Development Manager at GDI Consulting. I'm also joined with Ab Van, who heads our Capture and Proposal Development Department. Ab will be going into the details of this $15 billion GSA GWAC rebid. Some administrative notes that you can read is that if this is the first time attending one of our webinars, to the right of your screen under the blue File tab, there is a blue Download File button with which you can download the presentation slides. Chat is at the bottom right-hand side panel, which you can use to send your questions. If you click on the red button with the 3 dots to the right, it enlarges your screen and hides a side panel. And when you want to chat or download the presentation, you can click on the red button with 3 dots to expand the side panel. The reconnect button, by the way, is at the top of the screen and is for situations that would happen if you lose a connection or you want to reconnect again. So that's the housekeeping. Let me tell you just a little bit before we get into the meat of the presentation about who we are. You can see from this, we've had some serious growth over the past several years, and we have very proud an 81% win rate on the contracts that we've helped with. Bear in mind that equates to $6.2 billion worth of contracts won in 2018. But in the interest of a shortage of time, we'll skip the rest, and you can review it when you download the slides. So, you know, we are there not just to help you play, but to help win contracts. And we'll go into specifically how we do that, and I think you'll be impressed with the depth of knowledge that we provide. By the way, we're not new to this, and we really know government procurements. These are just some of the commands within DoD and the civilian side of contracts that we've helped win. And you can just see that, you know, most of them, including obviously on the bottom right, GSA, are one of the ones that we really know. So again, we're going to have the presentation will go on for about 40-45 minutes. We do have time for questions and answers, but if you can put some of your questions in the chat box, we'll address them at the time. So without further ado, Ab, why don't you take it over from here?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This is Ab Van. I head our Capture and Proposal Development Department. I am also the self-scoring SME in GDI Consulting, and I hope that I can give you some information today that can be helpful to you. First, let me explain why we are holding this webinar. Generally, as you know, self-scoring systems are new to most companies, to the government itself and to most companies. And so companies have problems understanding how to actually prepare the proposal, how to maximize their scores. There are many unknowns. So we are hoping that we can actually, when going through this, we can actually provide some light and shed some light on this and help you. And also, if you look at some of those numbers we have put, we've got 6 wins on Alliant, the original one, 8 wins on the canceled Alliant, 2, at least they were announced, but then it was canceled, which I will get in a minute. I will get to it for the reasons and everything. And then 8 wins on the original Oasis SP and 2 wins on the unrestricted. 4 wins on the HCAS. These are all self-scoring proposals. So we've done a lot of that. We've created a tailor-made scoring matrix to gauge your winning probability for all these types of self-scoring. And if we have time, hopefully I can show it to you and you will see how it works. I should say that for those, because we're getting a number of messages that Larry can respond to, people are not hearing. If you reconnect, usually you can actually start to hear. So perhaps, Larry, you can tell guys, people who are writing, that they can reconnect.
Okay, will do.
Okay, so let's go on. What are the goals today? We want you to understand how self-scoring system works. I'm assuming that most of people who are attending are those who have submitted proposals. If you have not submitted proposals previously, I will come back to that because there is a restriction, and I will explain that in a minute. But I want to go over this and for you to understand what are the requirements, how the self-scoring works, how to maximize your score, what is the compliancy barrier, which is very important. We'll get to that later on. And what are the changes from the previous version of the RFP? That's an important one. And then get a clear picture of the self-scoring system, how it works, what are the minimum requirements, what can go wrong, and what you can do to actually, now that everybody has a second chance. For those who have won, at least, I mean, they were announced, awarded, and then it was rescinded. And for those who lost, all of you have a second chance to go after this. So you really need to try to win it. Okay, this is the outline of the webinar today. I'll go over why they're rebidding. I'll go over the general information about Alliant 2 SB. I'll explain a little bit about the PSC groups and LETs, which I will explain what they are, the volume structure of the proposal, the requirements, Alliant 2 specific self-scoring system, what can go wrong, and then what your win strategy should be and how to maximize your score. And at the end, as Larry explained, we're going to have a Q&A. Okay. Let's start with why they are rebidding. Okay, there was, many might know this, but there was a protest to the GAO by Citizens Inc., a company, and they protested on two grounds. They said that 20 of the awardees failed to substantiate their points on the CAS, that's the cost accounting system. That was their first ground of protest. And the second was that the awardees provided inadequate pricing information to the government, and the government did not review it properly. Now, when the GAO went over this, GAO is the agency that looks after these protests. They found out that both grounds are correct. Essentially, they said that GSA's reliance on DCAA letters for CAS was irrational, was incorrect. And also, they said that GSA conducted an unreasonable price evaluation, at least for those 20 awardees. So at the end, what happened was that GAO ordered GSA to rescind all the 81 contracts and rebid Alliant 2 SB. So if you look at the dates, in February, GSA announced the awards, and in March, they had to rescind it because of this GAO order. So that's essentially why they're rebidding this. Let's go over some of the general information very quickly. Original release was on 24th of June, 2016. Took them around 2 years, a little bit less. February 14th, 2018, they announced 81 awards. But on March 26th, as I explained, based on GAO's decision, they had to rescind all of the contracts. So everything was nullified. And then they have put out the draft amendment on the 19th of August, a few days ago. This is draft. The final amendment 9 has not come out. So it is essentially at the pre-solicitation stage. Now, hear this. This is the important point. If you did not provide a proposal at the original time, in other words, in 2016, contractually, you're not allowed to participate in this bid. So this bid, so far at least, is for only those companies who actually provided proposals, whether they lost or whether they got the award and then that was nullified. So if you did not provide a proposal at that time, you cannot participate. Now, don't go away. There are two reasons. One, there is some rumor that they might change that. I don't know how strong that is, but we have heard it from different sources that they might change it and open it to everyone. But even if not, this self-scoring is really all about partnering, all about subcontracting. So you can get almost most of the score from your subcontracts. So for all those companies who did not participate in the original proposal, what they can do is they can actually approach those companies who are actually priming and try to work with them. And I think it is the most important strategy for all primes to actually go after new subcontractors and try to find new subcontractors and create agreements with them. So for those who did not participate in the original Alliant, I think this is a good opportunity to again work with some of the primes and become their subcontractors. But so far, from what the government has said, you cannot participate directly as a prime in Alliant to rebid. But we have to wait and see what happens. But this is essentially how it is at this point. And a number of awards. It was 80 originally, but during this amendment, they have changed it to 120. So this time they're going to award it to 120 companies instead of 80, the original 80. And the next code is 541512. So you must be small under that. That's important. So this is for small businesses only. Okay, let's go into the PSC groups. These are important because essentially you get most of your score, I would say around 61 or 60% of the score comes from 7 contracts that you need to provide to the government that must lie in one of these 3 PSC groups. So Alliant does not work with NAICS code. It works with the PSC group codes. So as you can see, for example, PSC group 1 are PSC codes D301 all the way to D399 and then J070. Excuse me. So for those who are not familiar with PSC, PSC is similar to NAICS, and it is used by some government agencies to differentiate between different types of contracts. So, and on Alliant, they're not going by NAICS, they're going by PSC. So, for example, out of those 7 contracts that you need to provide, 4 of them must be in PSC Group 1. So you need to find 4 contracts, either by yourself or your subs, and this is where the sub is important, that do have these score. Excuse me, these PSC codes. That's PSC Group 1. For PSC Group 2, as you can see, it's listed here. Again, a number of Ds, D306 all the way to 322. And then a few Rs, R410, R425 is one of the most prevalent codes, R425. So all of these lie into Group 2, and you can provide 3 contracts here for the, excuse me, yes, 3 contracts here, 2 contracts for Group 2, and then for Group 1 out of the 7 I'm talking. For Group 3, you can provide only 1 contract. So you have to find a contract with one of these codes. So these are the 3 PSC groups that you need to be aware of. So when you're picking the contracts, you're picking the correct contracts. There's also what they call a leading edge technology, or LET. You're supposed to provide 3 contracts under each of these to get scores. But the score you get here is very small. The number is very smaller than the PSC codes. And again, you can get the numbers, get the scores from your subs as well. So you have to provide 3 contracts under each of these to get the maximum score, which is 600 points. So 600 points for each. 10 times 600 is 6,000. But compared to the PSC group, this is not a very major scoring factor. So we'll get to it, but you should really focus on the PSC group rather than the LET. And then try to maximize at the end. I'm talking about your strategy for partnering and finding subs. Don't try to go for subs that would increase your LET at the beginning. Try to go for subs that would increase your PSC group score, and we'll get to that. Then when you have time, then go after the LETs, because you don't get that much of a score out of the LETs. But there are 10 of them, as you can see, from artificial AI all the way to autonomic computing, big data, biometrics, all the way to virtual networking. 10 of these that you get scores for. Okay, so now let me very quickly go over how the self-scoring system works. You're probably very familiar with it, but I just wanted you to understand the process. As far as you're concerned, you're supposed to actually assess yourself, fill out the self-scoring spreadsheet based on what the RFP says, give yourself a score, and then substantiate your claims. It sounds easy, but it is very difficult to actually be very compliant and do as the government has said. And then what the government will do, they've put the burden of the work on us. So what the government will do is they'll look at first, make sure that the proposal that they're receiving are compliant. That's their first line of defense. And then they will rank them based on the score and start checking the substantiations. If they're okay, they pick the top 120 out of the whatever number they receive. So their work is less. They've put the burden on us. And we'll see that because of that compliance issue, we really need to concentrate on compliance or we will be thrown away. And many of those who did not get the award were actually a victim of not being compliant rather than not having good projects. Let's look at the scoring system on Alliant. The total score is 83,100. The PSC group experience projects that I mentioned, 7 of them, you get 33,500. And for past performance, you get 17,500 for those same 7. So if you add these two together, in other words, the experience scores that you get for those 7 contracts and how well you did on those 7 contracts together, they're over 51,000 points, which is around 61%. 61% of the score comes from those 7 contracts. That's why I say you should concentrate on that. Now, compare that 51,000 points to the LET experience, which overall you get 7,500 for. So that's something to consider. Now, system certs and clearances is 17,100. I should say that the PSC, the LET, the past performance, together around 60,000 points out of the 83,000 can come, all of it can come from your sub. In other words, you might not even put 1 contract out of those 7 from yourself. The contracts, all 7 could come from your subs. The LET experience contracts, they can also come from the subs. That's allowed. So as you can see, about 60,000 out of the 83,000 is coming from can be coming from the subs. That's why it's so important to have a correct partnering plan to win on this. So the only scoring factor that can only come from the prime and not from the subs is the system search clearances. System search and clearances, are things like CMMI, whether you have a audited accounting system, whether you have a purchasing system, EVMS, ISO, secret or top secret facility. All of those add up to 17,100, and they can only come from the prime. Now, what is that organizational risk assessment? Okay, that says that they want to differentiate because they know that companies are going to go after partners. If you are going solo, or if you're a JV that have worked together, the JV has done projects and is providing its past performance, then you get that 7,500. But if you're putting together new subs, you're not going to get that 7,500. So it's either 0 or 7,500. If the organization that is offering the proposal, whether it's a solo company, a JV, or even a prime sub relationship that have worked together before and can prove it, they get the 7,500 points. If it's a new arrangement, either a new JV or a new prime sub relationship, you don't get that 7,500. So that's something to consider. And sometimes, for example, we did run into a company that was very strong, and they had everything except a few of the lets. And when we calculated the win and loss of adding the lets by bringing in subs, because those subs were new to them, they would lose 7,500, but they wouldn't gain that much from bringing in the lets. So they decided to continue going solo, and they had a high score. So this is something to consider. But from experience, most companies can gain much more from subcontracting than losing the 7,500 points. So that's how the self-scoring systems, different sections work. Okay, now this is the volume structure. Volume 1 is general, the administrative documents, some of the certain reps, uncompensated overtime policy, things like that. So there's no scoring related document here, just the usual administrative documents that are used in these proposals. Everything about your PSC group experience and the LET and the scores you get go into volume 2. So all the justifications, all the documents, everything goes there. Everything about past performance of those 7 contracts goes into volume 3. And I should mention that past performance is sort of a pass-fail. You get 2,500 points, and you multiply that by 7. That's why you get 17,500. You get 2,500 points, whether if you can prove by a CPAR or by a form, if a CPAR does not exist, by a PPQ, past performance questionnaire that comes with the documents, that your performance rating was anything above satisfactory. So satisfactory and above, you get 2,500 points. Less than satisfactory, you just don't get that 2,500 points for that contract. So it's that simple. You just provide the documentations, either the CPAR or the PPQ document. Volume 4 is the system search clearances, all the justifications to prove that you have, for example, the cost accounting system, you have purchasing system, you have the EVMS, CMMI, ISO, all of that. All the documentation to justify goes into volume 4. Risk assessment is, as you remember, I said that you have to prove that the organization that is providing the proposal, in other words, the prime sub, the JV, or the company that is going solo, actually work together. If you're a solo company, you don't have to provide any documents here. If you're a JV, you have to prove that your JV has been in existence, provide the documentation, and show that all the contracts that you did was performed by the JV itself. If you're going prime sub and you're claiming the 7,500 point risk assessment score, what you can do is you must provide the agreements that you had with the subcontractors, showing that they were involved in the contracts that you have worked. Note that you don't have to prove that the subs were involved in the 7 contracts that you're showing. That's not required. You just have to prove that you have had experience working with those subs on any contract, not necessarily the contracts you're presenting here. Lastly, volume 6 is the cost price, and they have removed volume 7 this time around. Volume 7 used to be financial responsibility. This has been removed. They've said that if you're in the selection mode, list, then they'll start communicating with you and asking for information. So when submitting the proposal, you're not supposed to provide volume 7 financial responsibility information. Okay, what are the main requirements? This is the way I present it. It's not listing all the requirements, but this is the way that I'm presenting it, so that you know if you want to win, you need to have this. Obviously, you need to be small, under 541.512 NAICS. So you and all your subs. So you can't bring in subs who are large businesses. Your subs must also be small, under 541.512. Remember that you do not have to have an audited accounting system. It is not mandatory. A CAS, an audited accounting system, you get 5,000 points for it. It's a high score you get for it in the system certs, but it's not mandatory. So if you don't have it, that's fine. You can still provide your proposal. Now, I've said that you need to have 7 contracts, because that's where, if you don't have those contracts, you might have everything else, but you just don't have, you have, say, 4 contracts or 5 contracts. You're not going to win. So you really need to have all those 7 contracts that they're asking for. And the requirements for those are, first of all, you need to be prime on them. You can't use subcontracts. Now, there's no exception. In other words, in some of the other self-scoring systems, if you were sub to a prime federal contract, you would be considered commercial contract and you could use it. This is not the case here. So only prime contracts can be used. Nonetheless, the contracts can be with the federal agencies, state agencies, commercial, or even international public sector contracts. When they say international public sector, it means that governments. So you can't, it says public sector, so you can't use contracts with an international organization. It has to be public sector, so government contracts. Okay, the contracts must have been completed within the last 5 years, or be ongoing with 1 year of performance. And that 5 years is calculated until based on when the RFP is going to be due, which is not known yet. So 5 years from that time back. Or if they're ongoing, you need to have 1 year of performance. In other words, you can't use a contract that you got 3 or 4 months ago, even though it might be a very good contract, but it just doesn't have a 1 year performance unless there is a CPAR for it. And then one of the important restrictions, each of those 7 contracts must be $1 million or greater. How do you calculate that? If it's a completed project, you look at the obligated amount. So what amount was obligated is important. That has to be over 1 million. If it's an ongoing project, then you look at the estimated amount, including all the option years. So if it's going to be, it's going to have 5 option years, you calculate all of that into it. And if it's over $1 million, it's a go. Of course, if you have, if the value is larger, you get more score, but this is a minimum. So if it's less than 1 million, it's no go as far as that contract is concerned. And then, as I mentioned previously, four of the contracts out of the 7 must be for PSC Group 1. 2 of them must be for PSC Group 2, and 1 must be for PSC Group 3. So you can't use, for example, 5 for PSC Group 1. Only 4, that's the maximum. So these are essentially the most important factors that your contracts and your information must have, your company must have. Now, the rest of it is just you get more score for it. But these are the minimums, so to say, if you want to win. What are the changes from previous RFP? First of all, age of the allowed contract is now based on the new release date, and we don't know when the final RFP is coming out and when it's due. That 5-year is going to be calculated based off of that. As I mentioned, there are going to be 120 awards this time instead of the 80 originally. Volume 7 has been removed. They're going to ask for it during the award process. You can now use a combination of JVs and subcontractors. This was the subject of one of the protests, not on Alliant, but later on Oasis. And it actually made Oasis GSA go through the same process. In other words, they had to rebid because they had said that if you're a JV, you're not allowed to use subcontractors, and vice versa. You cannot bring a JV as a subcontractor. They have changed that language now on the new amendment on this Alliant. So if you're a JV, you can also use subcontractors, and if you're a prime, you can also have a JV as a subcontractor. This is now allowed. Remember that now in this new submission, you can change your subs. This is not a change as far as the RFP is concerned, but be aware that there is no limitation as far as you as the prime is concerned to change your subs. So you can actually submit your entire proposal completely different, change your contracts, everything. This is just a note that you should be aware of. You're not constrained to anything that you submitted last time. You might want to change all your subs, you might want to change all your contracts, everything. One other change that they've made is that previously they said that if you want to get for example, past performance questionnaire filled out and you couldn't find the CO, the contracting officer, previously they said, okay, that's fine, get a score to sign it, but you must also attach an email from the core to the CO. Now they're saying that that email is not needed. Just get the core to sign it, but do provide the information, contact information for both the core and the CO. So that's another change. And finally, they've said that no matter what, if you're not going to change anything, you must resubmit a new volume 4, which is system search and clearances, and the new volume 6, which is the price volume. So that you have to resubmit anyway. What can go wrong? Compliance, compliance, compliance. This is the problem we're having with all self-scoring projects. The way that you submit your proposal, if it's not in the proper way, that is the first line of the defense for the government to put your proposal aside. They're going to get a lot of these proposals, and they don't want to, spend time going through each of them when it's not compliant. So both in terms of format, the simplest things, all the way to the content, which contracts you've put in, how you have substantiated it, all of that. It's really important to make sure. And large number of companies we know of were eliminated because they just did not do proper compliance checks and reviews. And so even though they had very good scores. Misunderstanding the requirements, that's another problem that might be created. because there are a lot of equations you have to resolve. There are so many things that depend on each other. So you really need to read through the sections L and M many times on these self-scoring projects to make sure that you fully understand. And this is where we can help you. We provide consultation. It's free, so you can email us or even call us, and we can answer any questions that you might have. Late getting proper signature from COs and cores. You might not have, for example, a CPAR for a project, and you need to get it signed, the PPQ signed by the core or the CO. So don't put that for the last days. Start right now. Some of them go on vacation for a month or so. So you really need to give them heads up, even though you might not have decided which projects you're going to get a signature for, things like that. But do give your contracting officers and cores a heads up. Sometimes contracting officers have moved away from that office, and you need to get those forms signed again, and you have to find the replacement and all that. So make sure that you're not late on that. Not maximizing your score. Which contracts are you going to use? I'll show you, if you have time, how we do that. We have created a matrix that does help us to maximize the score, because sometimes you have many contracts. You just don't know which one to use to maximize it, because a number of factors kick in. For example, you can provide 4 contracts for PSC Group 4, but then you get more score also if the contracts are above a certain value, and then you get more score if you have contracts that are done, for example, OCONUS internationally. So you have to consider all of these and then decide which contract to use where. And it is important to consider this. So you need to really work on maximizing your score. Not taking full advantage of subcontracting. I think I have emphasized that so much. As I said, you get about 60,000 out of the 83,000 you can get it from your subcontracts. So it's really important to go after not just one subcontract, as many as you can. Because as soon as you start bringing in subcontracts, you're going to lose that 7,500 points for risk assessment, volume 5. So just don't be shy. Use as many. We know of companies that have 12 or 13 subs, and to be able to maximize their score. And finally, not substantiating your score properly. You need to provide the proper documents. You need to highlight them. You need to provide them in the proper way, naming and everything. So substantiation is really important. It's part of that compliance. But I wanted to emphasize that substantiating your score is really important. Otherwise, you do have the score, but if you don't substantiate it well, you just lose it. They're going to scratch it out. And let's look at this number, this graph that shows the problem of non-compliance. This we didn't have the scores for Alliant, obviously, but this is for GSA HCATs, which is very similar to Alliant 2 as far as self-scoring systems is concerned. And you can see the light orange color are the eliminated proposals. Look at the small business pool or the small business proposals, a little bit less than 75%, 66 out of 90 or so, 95 proposals were eliminated for being non-compliant. So they awarded only 29, whereas they wanted to really award 44, but they just did not have enough companies that were compliant. And don't think this is the problem of small businesses only. Look at the unrestricted. Large businesses have problems here too. Nearly 50% of them were eliminated for HCATs. So this problem persists everywhere because it's the same theory It's not just for HCAS. For all self-scoring, companies have problems making sure that they're compliant. They really need to have multiple sets of eyes review their stuff to make sure that they are compliant. And what should your win strategy be? Okay, these are the points that we think you should concentrate on. First of all, the PSC group projects, those 7 projects are king. Focus there. If you're going to go after partners, go after partners for PSC groups, not LET, not at least at the beginning. When you're done finding the good partners, the best partners that can give you the PSC group projects, then start working for LET. So it's really important to focus on that, because as you saw, 60% of your score comes from this, and all of it can come from subs. Maximize the use of your commercial projects. If you've done commercial projects, you can use them. There is no restriction. There is no differentiation between whether you have federal or commercial. So if you have done good commercial projects, you can get a good score for them, go after them. Maximize your score. And one way is our self-scoring matrix. I will show that in a minute to you, but you really need to work on your score. It's not that you just have to pick, for example, the largest projects that you have done. Sometimes a very small project, of course, larger than 1 million, will get you more score than having a $40 million project. So there are a number of factors that kick in. You really need to work on them. It's a multi-equation or multi-dimensional equation. You have to work on it. And I hope for those companies that we will support, we'll provide this self-scoring matrix. It's going to ease this problem a lot. Make full use of subs and multiple subs. I'm trying to repeat this as many times as is needed, because I really think that everybody should really understand that if they want to win, they really need to go after subs, and not just 1 or 2 subs, multiple subs. Check compliance, think compliance, and eat compliance. Again, as I said, that is really important. You don't want, even if you have the best score and you've made a few mistakes, you will be put aside. You don't want to see that situation. If you lost the previous time, we suggest that you outsource. It shows that you need help. And for those who actually got awarded, I think you need to get reviews of your projects, unless you don't want to change anything. But if you want to change some of the projects, bringing in new subs and everything, we suggest that you use multiple set of eyes reviewing your project. You just don't want to make mistakes. Okay, before Larry goes into here, services we can provide, let me for a minute share my screen and show you what I mean by that self-scoring, and then we come back here and Larry can show you. So give me a minute so I can actually share my screen with you. Okay, this is a project that we did. This is a form that we created on the original Alliant, and we're working to see if anything needs to be changed. Not so far, but the way this form works is that you plug in each contract is a row on this spreadsheet, and then if it's, for example, for PSC Group 1, based on the relevant PSC, you put a 1 and you get a score. So if you don't put a 1 there, as soon as you remove that, you can get a different score from something else. For example, you can put 1 here and the score changes. So the differences that based on what you input here, what PSC code you're using, this total score changes, and it will tell you at the end, based on the different contracts. For example, these higher green contracts are these 5 are for PSC Group 1. I know that I have 5. With this one is 6. And I can decide based on the numbers here, the total score, which one, if I use, will give me the highest score. I can see that this one gives me 7,500. This gives me 5,500. This gives me 2,700. This gives me 4,000. So I know that, for example, which ones to use and which ones not to use. Now, this form also tells me if some of the contracts do not have the minimum requirements. Like this one, the contract value is 529,000, so it's not above 1 million. So this contract cannot be used at all. It's red. Or sometimes the dates, like this one, since this was for the original original Alliant, you can see that it finished in 2016. At that time, when we were doing it, it just didn't have 1 year of performance, so it could not be used. So this way, first of all, we check for compliance, and secondly, this one has 5, you might have 8 or 9 in PSC Group 1. Based off the score that you can see here, you can decide which ones to actually use will give you the highest score. And this is how we actually maximize. Sometimes a large number, like for example, this is a good one because this is a small contract which is getting 7,500. It's only a 2 to 5 million, which gets 500 points for contract amount. Whereas this one is 5 to 15. The value is $9 million. Whereas this one is $3 million. But this one is about 3,500 points more. The total score for this that you're going to get is 7,500. The total score for this one is 4,000. So this form tells us actually, based on all the information that we inputted, what the total score for each contract and actually overall will be, because we have a tab for LETs as well, and adds them up. So you can actually see how to maximize. And then you can plug in the projects that you get from the subcontractors as well. And that's that way, once you bring in a subcontractor, you can plug it in here into the proposal and into this form, and it makes sure that, for example, because sometimes a subcontractor's project might be very good, but you already have that sort of a hole filled. So it doesn't give you a good gap analysis. But using this, it provides you a very good gap analysis of what you're missing and how to maximize your score. So we will use this for every project to be able to maximize the score, and also provide help and support as to the selection of subcontractors and how to maximize the score using the subcontractors as well. Okay. Now, let me go back then.
Okay, we have a bunch of questions. I just want to, before we get into the questions, you can see that as Ab went through it, we're pretty competent on evaluating the proposal when it needs to win. So we provide consultation, we help with your proposal, and I've been in the government game for a long time. The government loves competition. We're going to help you win, and we're going to do it by making sure the forms are prepared properly, it's assembled, you're not knocked out for being non-compliant, and we're just going to help you win. So let's see, why don't we go to the next slide, and let me start. This is the contact information, which, by the way, I'm available, Ab is available, but let's start reading some questions. First of all, a question is, how do you support more than one company going after the same award but using your service? Ab?
Okay, this does not involve any proposal writing. So essentially, we have to work on your capabilities, your past performance, and everything. We just make sure that everything is compliant and we can maximize your score. Of course, this does not mean that we're going to provide any information, your information to others. So the way we work is that either you have your own repository and we work there, or if you're using our own repository, there's a firewall between all the teams. And no one team is going to work on multiple projects. So once we start working on these, your team will be dedicated to you, and they will not know about the other teams, etc. So this is how we differentiate between them. We usually, as a rule, never work on the same proposal for multiple clients. We only do it for these self-scoring because essentially the meat of the material is your past performance, which we cannot even the worst case scenario, if somebody else knew what your past performance was, they couldn't do anything about it. But as I said, we protect your information. Of course, we sign NDAs and everything, but we do all that is possible to protect information, our client information, from being, divulged to others. Over.
Okay. Next question. If we form a joint venture with a business which is large now, but submitted as a small business on the original Alliant, can we do that?
Yes. They have said that if you provided, at least this is how I understand it, they say that for subs and arrangements that were done at that time and were small, that time, in other words, the time that it was submitted, that is counted. But for new subs that you're bringing in other words, you might be bringing in new subs or even forming a new JV now, then they're going to look at the situation of that JV or that sub or whatever now and see if it's a small business or not. But if it were a small at that time, they're going to accept it.
Okay, that goes to the next question, Ab. What if we were subcontractor to the original bid? Can we now prime it, or do we have to be a subcontractor again?
Yes, you have to. So far, you have to be sub again. In other words, they're going to look at who actually provided the proposals in whose name. Since it was not in your name and in the prime's name, you still need to sub it, unless, as I said, the rumors are correct and they're going to change. But so far, from what we've seen officially, yes, you have to. This time too, you have to be sub.
Okay, new question, and this looks like a good problem. We submitted under the original bid. We are not currently a small business anymore. Can we submit again under the new small business, even though we're a large business under 541512 now?
Hard question.
Yeah, I'm not. That's a gray area for sure.
Yeah. Because they have mentioned the idea of the subs, but they haven't actually said what if with the prime. So that's something I think that we should ask, or you should ask them to clarify.
Next question. Would they reconsider small status as of submission on the new proposal date? Would GSA consider a 5 or 3 year average for small business status determination?
Good question. They're going to switch to the 5-year determination, I think in November. That's going to be official. Now, depending on when this is coming out, they'll probably have to, it's based on that. And if this is going to be submitted, or they have to spell it out, whether it will be the issuance date or the submission date. But based on that, we'll have to see if it's after November or before November. If it's after November, I'm sure that a large number of companies are going to go for that 5-year, issue.
I agree. Okay, next question for the LET, for the emerging technology stuff. Do we need 3 under each area?
No, it's not a mandatory. You might not have even 1 under one of the areas. You just get more score. So the worst case scenario is you don't have any under any of them. That's fine. You can still provide your proposal, but you just get more score. You get 600 points for each of those areas. Right. The first project you get 100 points. Second project, you get 200 points. Third project, you get 300 points. So the sum is 600 points.
Okay, I think you've answered this already, but do subs have to be small in the NAICS as well as under the JVs?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Does let's see, does the new solicitation information appear on FBO, and can we provide the URL?
Yes, we can send you the URL. It's actually the same page. I mean, it's not a new page on FBO. The same page that they actually provided the original Alliant. Same page started on 24th of June 2016. That same page on FBO now has the new amendment 9. Actually, it's a draft amendment. So it's on the same page, but we can send it to you after the call.
Okay, next question. For the will the bidder be able to find out what their evaluated points were originally? For instance, if we bid with a self-score of 74,000, did GSA only accept 72,000? Any way of finding that out?
Unfortunately, they're not going to do that. At least so far, it seems. It means that they have to go through a lot of logistics. I doubt that they're going to do that. You might want to ask them, but to be honest, I doubt that they're going to go that route. So every company has to assess their score again and assess what mistakes they might have made and not do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. Okay, another question. If we have two partners and we have worked with only one of them, can we get 7,500 points?
No. If you bring in, just say you have, let's go to the extremes. You have 12 partners and you have worked with 11 of them before, but you can't prove that you have worked with the 12th one, you lose the 7,500. So it's better to put that 12th one away and use the first 11. That's why you have to weigh in. If you bring in a new partner that you have not worked with, you lose 7,500. So what are you going to gain? So these are the things that actually that scoring matrix that I showed you helps. But if you're doing it yourself, you have to weigh this in and understand, how it works. Is there currently a list available for all the prime contractors from original submission back in 2016? No, there's no list, but there is a list of who was originally awarded. So 81 companies were awarded. There's a list that shows what those companies were, but not a list of who actually submitted a proposal. Do you feel there is any chance that GSA will cancel Alliant 2? Very much doubt it. No. If they wanted to cancel it, they would have done it by now. It's now 2 years, and the fact that they've submitted this means that this amendment means that they're going after it. It's a $15 billion project, so they have not. I doubt very much that they're going to cancel this. Do you have any thoughts in the timing of the final Amendment 9 and due date? For sure, it's not going to be September because all the contracting officers are really working on awarding contracts now. So it is going to be, from our information, it's going to be the first quarter of 2020, which means the coming months, October, November, December. It just means they're getting responses by October 7th for the amendment. They want your input for all those companies that did submit. So after they review that, they're going to, if they're fast, by the end of October, and if they are not, which they usually are not, it should be in November probably. That's our estimate. Okay, the 7 contracts must be prime for you, the offer, or one of the subcontractors. All of them can be from the subcontractors, but even if they're for the subcontractors, the subcontractor company, they must have been prime on it. So it can be any combination between you and your subs, but either case, you or the sub must have been prime on those contracts. Okay, another question, where can we find a list of those who applied originally? We are interested in reaching out to them for partnering subcontracting. Unfortunately, as I said, there's no list. There's a list of those awardees. Perhaps you want to reach out to them. Also, I should mention that any companies who, both primes and subs, who are looking for partnering, do let us know, and we will put your hands in hand. So if you want to be a sub to another company, or if you're a prime looking for a partner, either way, let us know. We'll just introduce you to each other. That's no problem for us. Age of allowed contracts has shifted. The dates substantially may affect project selection. That is quite correct. It's going to be 5 years from now. In other words, when the RFP comes out, and not 5 days from 2016. So 2 years have passed. So you might need to reconsider a number of projects. Another question, the draft amendment states offer may use the original proposal due date for the requirement that projects must be ongoing or have been completed within 5 years from the date proposals are due. Offers may use any extended proposal due date for the requirement that projects must have at least 1 year of performance. Your slide 19 bullet 1 says the age of allowed contracts is now based on the new release. Please clarify. This is what we've heard that they're going to change. You're correct. The draft amendment says that, but our sources told us that they are very much inclined to changing it to a new 5-year period that starts, say, if we are in 2019, it would be 2014. We'll have to see, but this is something that at least we've heard there is a strong contention that they're going to change it. They're just afraid of multiple protests again, and I'm sure the protests will come from both sides, both from if they move it to a new 5-year period, some companies will protest, and if they don't move it, some other companies will protest. So we'll have to see what comes out after they get your input. So I suggest to all companies, do give them input on this based on what you prefer, and see how it goes. But I'm sure this is something that is going to be a fight on different interests. We will need to resubmit PP from COs or cores and COs. Yes, if again, depending on two factors. One, if you have to change contracts, obviously you need to resubmit the past performance questionnaire, or you have to check. For example, there might during this period, if a new CPARS has been issued, then you can't use the previous PPQ that you got signed. You have to use the new PPQ, excuse me, the new CPARS. So that's something also to understand. What is your opinion on the new point floor for award? Okay, two factors kick in here. One, companies have learned more since 2016 on how to do self-scoring. They have learned from their mistakes. That's point one. So all those companies that lost, they now know probably why they lost. Also, and conversely, that first point I made makes the competition stiffer, but now they're going from 80 awardees to 120. In other words, 40 more awardees. So there is a balance here. We think, and we don't have any concrete numbers because we did get awards for a number of our clients on those that were canceled, but our perception is that it should be in the range above at least 70,000, perhaps 75,000, and more. So that's what I think the minimum should be, 75,000 at least. Be aware that except for, I'm talking theoretically, except for the system certs and clearances, you can get everything else from subs. So theoretically, you can get all the score. Now, for those companies that do have a audited accounting system in place, they get 55 points, 5,500 points in the system certs and clearances. So I would think that there will be a number of companies where well near the 80,000 point. So I think that's why it's really important to maximize your score point by point. You don't want to lose to the last 120th company. So really work on those scores. For the OCONUS work, can that be from a sub? Yes. OCONUS work can be. Remember that the OCONUS work is not separate from those 7 contracts. So it's not that you can prove that you worked OCONUS from an 8th contract. OCONUS is one of the requirements of one of those 7 contracts. So that's why it's important to pick the proper contracts. And it can come from your sub, yes. Can you be a sub to multiple primes? You can, but they have mentioned that you cannot use the same project. So if you're being a sub to multiple primes, you cannot lend them the same project. You might have, say, 4 projects, and you lend each of those primes a separate project. Okay, I think I answered that one, same one. Was there a minimum score cutoff announced from the 81 awardees? No, there was no announcement on the cutoff score. Acquire signatures again is really the question. So far, from the amendment, if you're using contracts that there has been no change to them, it seems that they don't want that. As you can see, they've said that you must only send volume 4 and volume 6. They haven't said that you must provide volume 3 with a new signature or anything like that. They have not said that. But if they come back after the amendment and the full amendment drops and say that the new 5-year starts from, the release of the solicitation or the submission of the proposal date now in 2019, then we're in problem. Then some companies will just have to change their contract documents. If a prime contractor brings in a new subcontractor that they have not worked with, does the prime lose all the organization risk assessment points? Yes, exactly. As I said, even if you have 12 contractors and you have worked with 11 of them, the 12th one you have not worked, you lose the entire 7,500 points. If we were sub to the prime in our previous, can we bid as a prime? I think we answered that. No, you cannot. Okay, we answered that. Are there limits on teaming in that? Can subs be on multiple teams? If not, can the sub use the same past performance on multiple teams? Or are there limits on it like Oasis? It seems that they have put the same language. In other words, you can be on multiple teams, but you just have to use different projects. You can't lend different primes, the same projects. So far, it seems like that. Working with a prior partner means an actual contract is being performed together, or could it be just that we have tried to work together on that bid? No, actual contract. You have to provide. There are two documents that you have to provide. One is your contract with the subcontractor. That's the internal contract that you have with them. Also, a contract number that was won by you and you work together. So that's, and they're going to check that. Is there a minimum score that government is looking for? No, there's no minimum. It just depends what the 120 companies can come up with. No minimum score announced for the 81 awardees. Okay. Submission due date. Well, this is in the pre-solicitation phase. This is draft amendment 9. So they have not put in any dates. They've said that they need your input, because you might tell them, hey, for example, that 5-year period should be changed or anything like that. Any input you want should be given to them before 7th of October. But they have not announced when they're going to drop the actual amendment, which would give us the dates for submission of the new proposals. Would they accept change in PSC code if approved by CO specific to Alliant solicitation? So far, they haven't mentioned that, and they don't provide a form for that. But they have said that you have to prove that either by FPDS or by showing documentation that actually provides the proof. Now, that documentation could be a statement of work and other documents. Now, if you can get the CO to sign some sort of a document, that might be helpful, but this is not very clear at this point. Is there any way to get the 5,500 points if you don't have a government-approved accounting system? Can a third party perform an independent assessment of the accounting system? This methodology has been accepted by other agencies, e.g. NIH and CIO SP3. No, GSA does not accept that. GSA specifically says that an approved accounting system is one that has been audited by DCMA or DCAA or some sort of an agency. So you need to have an audit report or audit letter, something like that, to prove. And do remember that one of the reasons that this was protested was their lack of actual due diligence on this. So they're very sensitive on this. They're not going to allow that. Okay, we've reached the end of the questions, and we've gone over our time, 15 minutes. I would like to thank everyone for attending, and we thank you very much for attending this. We'll be sending the replay of this webinar by tomorrow within 24 hours to all those who participated. And as Larry mentioned, feel free to contact both me and Larry and ask any questions, and we can help you. As I said, free consultation. And then if you want us to do any review or any work for your proposal, we can do that too as well. And I will keep the webinar open for a few minutes. So if you want to download the presentation slides, as Larry said, it's to the right. There's a download button. You can download the presentation slides. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we look forward to having you with us on future webinars. We're going to have 2 more webinars next week. We'll be sending the agenda for that to all companies, and if you're interested, of course, you can participate. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.